I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show we have Shayne Higdon, the CEO and co-founder of the HBAR Foundation. Shayne, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Ashton. It's great to be here.
Likewise, I've been following Hedera for quite a while now, and a lot of great projects that are built on the Hedera ecosystem have come on the show as well. So I'm fascinated to hear about the foundation and how you're helping companies and the Hedera network itself grow. So thank you so much for taking the time. Let's just dive straight into it with a high-level overview of what is the HBAR Foundation and how are you helping grow the Hedera network?
Great question. And when we started the HBAR Foundation, we knew that Hedera as a DLT was unparalleled technology in the crypto/blockchain space for a few reasons. Its speed, its security, and the fact that it's the greenest chain out there, 9,000 times more efficient than is Ethereum. And the more use you get out of the network, the more efficient it becomes. And so we felt that there was this need to continue to build an ecosystem. At the time we did this, the technology around Hedera was still patented, closed source. As of the end of last year, August 5th, it became fully open source. And so we have been really expanding the developer community in a big way as an ecosystem, funding infrastructure projects, as well as many, many dApps. And so what we've been focused on is just that. We've been focused on incentivizing the builders, the dreamers, et cetera, to build on top of what we believe is the best chain out there. And, that's largely through grant funding, but it's also, we give them technical as well as marketing support along their journey. We decided to really focus it very much like a venture capital organization in the way that we've structured ourselves. So we've got 6 different funds, 4 main funds, and then 2 smaller funds. The first fund was the Crypto Economy Fund, focusing largely on crypto infrastructure, making sure that we had wallets and exchange listings and all the things, DeFi as an example. DeFi was something that the chain didn't have when the foundation started, and we funded several projects there. I can go into more detail in a bit. The second was the Metaverse Fund, and this really is focused on not just gaming or Metaverse in particular, but brands looking to extend loyalty and loyalty engagement of their users. We've got several different Metaverse opportunities that we funded there. Then we've got the Payments and FinTech Fund. It is what it sounds like. Anyone who's tokenizing assets and or looking at cross-border payments, payment settlement, facilitation, et cetera. And then finally, we've got our Sustainable Impact Fund. This is focusing on the ESG, manage all of the carbon credits, carbon offsets, and we funded several marketplaces. This is an area right now, much of the team is at the World Economic Forum focusing on that. And then we've got 2 smaller funds. One is the Female Founders Fund. So we wanted to invest in women who own at least 30% of the projects or companies that they are investing in or building. And then finally, the identity, decentralized identity, knowing that that's going to be a big element for the future. We wanted to fund many projects in that respect. So those are the 6 funds and how we've allocated capital. One more data point, and then I'll turn it back over to you. And that is that we have, over the course of the last year, we have funded just about 200 different projects, deploying a little over $350 million of funding despite this bear market.
Wow, incredible, Shayne, and thank you for laying that out with all the different funds. And I knew there was some kind of pivot, following Hedera for in the years past and in the prior cycle, and then all of a sudden seeing like a huge explosion of all these different decentralized applications, and now I'm putting all the pieces together here, and like it's incredible to see the growth on the Hedera ecosystem as of late, especially in the bear market as well. You know, as you mentioned, just investing so much and heads down building during the bear market. It's great to see all the applications coming out in all these different industries as well. I'm excited to dive into some of them. I'm curious, from a high level, you know, in investing and helping all these different projects, obviously to have good applications, the developers need to develop those applications and hopefully easily to incentivize more people to build on Hedera. What is the, you know, besides like providing them grants and funding to start developing on Hedera, how easy has the ecosystem made itself to start developing or to transfer development from other blockchains or from traditional developers to start moving onto Hedera and like easily build something to move it into production?
So when we started, as you know, as I mentioned, we weren't fully open source. We were open review, and so now we are 100% open source down to the kernel, the key algorithm specifically for Hashgraph. And so I think we've seen a significant amount of projects. We've seen projects now, specifically lately, Astronova moving from Ethereum, it's a gaming platform, moving from Ethereum to us. We've seen Cosmium, which is another AAA game, moving from Solana to us. Some of our projects are building migration utilities to make it easier for folks to move from other chains to us. We needed some of the infrastructure, building blocks, plumbing, whatever you might want to call it, that we developed earlier this year. And I say we, I mean we as an ecosystem, not just we as a foundation. One of our ecosystem partners, Swirls Labs, you know, earlier in the year, we built those, you know, building on Ethereum to move that over. We continued to extend developer tool support to things like MetaMask and other developer tools. We continue to do that. We know we need to make it easier for folks to migrate from one chain to the next. The other thing that we've done is we've continued to secure the network. So this year we also rolled out native staking. And community nodes are going to be coming, right? So as we think about many organizations, we are different than most chains out there in terms of our governance model. Today, we've got 27 governing council members, ranging from the likes of Aberdeen, which has, you know, they're a $508 billion asset under management that is looking to tokenize assets. They're going to be tokenizing their money market funds first, their real estate funds later, all on Hedera, all the way to a company like ServiceNow, who is allowing organizations to look at, you know, ESG reporting and carbon footprint tracking, you know, specifically on their Now platform, and everything in between, from Google to, you know, Ubisoft and gaming, etc. And so as we think about those governing council members who, you know, are here, that's who's typically been running those of the network and governing, and now we're moving into, you know, knock on wood, cautiously optimistic in the coming days that we'll have the community nodes being run.
Very cool. And you mentioned at the beginning about the grant funding and, you know, helping accelerate these projects, and the fact that the foundation is working it, you know, like a VC firm. It's like, make sure you allocate the capital efficiently and properly, which I think is great. I'm curious if you can dive into that a little bit more in terms of if there's projects that are just in incubation, maybe they're not even launched yet, or maybe there's one moving from a different blockchain. At what stages, or, you know, what green flags, what criteria do you look at in terms of how you're going to fund a project or give them capital to start launching on Hedera? So
we, like a VC, would look at various project stages. Now, typically you segment your venture capital work into seed stage, early stage, late stage types of investing. We're a little bit doing it all from a grant funding perspective. There are some where we are funding, you know, three ladies in a garage, to we're funding people that have real businesses generating real revenue that are later stage. And the support we're providing is not just financial. We're also providing technical support and education, as well as marketing support when needed, whether that's aligning, you know, our social channels and Discords and Telegrams and other things to whatever needs to happen to amplify whatever it is that they are building on chain. Lithos is another gaming example that these guys created. Lithos, they are former Sony PlayStation executives that are building a game called Ashball. This is going to bring tens of millions of some significant growth and user activity towards the end of the year as a result of their efforts. And so we're going to continue to see that. And so we want to make sure that we cast a wide net in terms of projects. Some are, when I talked about investing in builders and dreamers, some of that is just it. It's a dream. It's someone that says, hey, I think this is going to change the way, this particular industry operates, or this particular thing that I can solve uniquely with DLT. It's going to change, the shape of whatever problem they're trying to solve. And if, when we think about how we make investment or grant decisions, we look at a lot of things. First is the idea. Is the idea strong enough? And specifically, is the problem big enough, right? Is the problem that they are trying to solve big enough where you're going to get a significant number of users, a significant, market share, et cetera. And some of this is hard, trying to determine how big a market is when a market doesn't exist. So that's why we try to talk to them in terms of the problems they're solving. Then after you look at that, you say, hey, I think the problem is big enough or it's unique enough, and we think that, there's enough opportunity. What's the strength of the product idea itself? Is it unique? And specifically, one of the areas that I'm focused on, because I believe this hinders the broader adoption of blockchain/DLT in the non-crypto use cases, and that's user experience. User experience is paramount. If people are going to adopt it, it can't be as technical as it is today. It's got to be slick. It's got to be drag and drop. It's got to be easy for people to use. And we're seeing some applications being built on chain that are doing just that are uniquely changing the way that they interact with DLT. And that's exciting to us, because then I think you look at adoption. And then finally, the third area is the strength of the team. Have they had previous successes? Are they previous founders? Or have they had previous failures? Because oftentimes failures are just as important, because you learned a lot. And then we test out how much did you learn after your failing company or project, et cetera. So it's been fun. It's been a fun journey, and we try to do our due diligence as best as possible.
And no, it is fun, and I appreciate that the foundation is even looking at the garage crews and funding people that they want to make a difference, but it's hard for them to break into traditional venture capital. So I do appreciate that. And what you mentioned there about the user experience, I think, is paramount as well. For a company to come out with an amazing Web3 game that's going to revolutionize the gaming industry is great, but if it's too technical to get onto, then you're going to have a lot of hindrance for mainstream adoption. So I think the infrastructure play is
there's already headwinds. And there's already headwinds related to gaming, where a lot of gamers don't want NFTs, or they don't want any kind of economics. I mean, you look at, Epic's Fortnite, right? You've got V-Bucks. There's all kinds of games, but I'm just certainly familiar with that, playing it with my son. But you look at that and you say, look, do I want to really associate that to real cash, or to, beyond buying skins? Do I want to do something else? And a lot of gamers are like, no, I don't want NFTs. And so we've certainly given grants to some projects that are testing out this theory to see if they can change the relationship, the loyalty associated to many gamers on these gaming platforms. We'll see.
Yeah, great point. And I was personally curious about the Metaverse Fund and gaming and the different aspects of GameFi, whether it's just a casual game or it's these intense, Call of Duty-like games, and where we're going to see Web3 gaming moving forward. I feel like the explosions have yet to come. We haven't seen a AAA quality game sort of break through with NFTs. And as you mentioned there's some pushback. And I've seen other games that attempted to announce NFTs, and there's backlash from the community. So with respect to the HBAR Foundation's Metaverse Fund, Metaverse versus other types of gaming. What are you personally interested in? Where do you see the growth of Web3 in this gaming aspect?
So to level set, the Metaverse Fund for us was, one of our largest funds, and we, again, while it's titled Metaverse, that isn't necessarily adequate for all that we are doing there to associate specific brands with their end users, some of which aren't games at all. Bamboo Meta, which is a really, really unique platform. Imagine you've got an NFT in your Apple Wallet, and based on your geolocation, that NFT changes, offering you discounted products or services. Let's say you're in a mall and you decide you walk into, a Nike store, or then you walk into, name your next door, a Lululemon or whatever, and all of a sudden that NFT that is in your wallet, in your Apple Wallet, changes with a QR code based on that location. Incredibly powerful. That's what Bamboo Meta does. And so we're excited to have them on chain, not necessarily gaming, but is in the Metaverse Fund. In Q1, we are estimating, based on the data that we've got today, that we'll have close to 80 projects going live in Q1. About 40% of those are Metaverse related. And so as we think about now, to your question on gamify, we've certainly seen a lot of games. Ubisoft is one of our council members. We created a co-fund with them to invest in early stage projects. Lithos is certainly a significant project. They're building a game, AAA game called Ashball. They've done an NFT drop. It's been really impressive, and throughout this year, there's going to be a lot more activity coming from them. So we're really excited about that. I mentioned Cosmium. KHOSMIUM. They're moving over from Solana to us. It's a AAA game. Astronova, we just recently announced within the last few days, moving over from Ethereum. That's a AAA game doing MOBA, RPG and other types all rolled into one. Legends of the Past, the list goes on. And so we don't know which one or all of them are going to be wildly successful, but we believe there is transformation happening in that space. And we want to be front and center with that. And we want to be front and center with the enterprise adoption that we're also seeing. Most recently, at the World Economic Forum, we displayed a use case called Atma.io from one of our council members, Avery Dennison, which is taking and they've got their connected products cloud. They've got multiple billions of products and items that they are tracking. And then they look at the carbon footprint from raw material to retail sale and everything in between. And so that companies can buy carbon offsets for step 1, step 2, step 3 in the creation of that said product. So if you've got billions of items and those items have multiple stages in the process to bring them to life, you get multiple billions of transactions on the network, and we're excited to see that come to life.
Wow, that's very exciting, and I love how you're expanding out in the metaverse and not just in gaming. And I think the metaverse might take people by storm when they realize that the world outside of games is sort of being gamified. And when you also think about augmented reality, spatial web, things like that, that's where you're able to drive more value to people in the real world. They don't actually have to be in a game to extract value from the digital world where they are in the real world.
Well, and let me give you another example. We are seeing organizations that are building on top of Hedera for the metaverse that are doing and focused on cost savings. So today there's a company that has to fly all of their employees, regardless of where they're hired. They're a global company. Regardless of where they're hired, they have to fly them all to a central location for proper training. They have created a metaverse environment where that training can happen in the metaverse. And once they get certified, that training, that certificate becomes an NFT. Longer term, they want that NFT not just to signify that they've passed a particular course or set of courses, but to use that also as an identifier, as identity on their badge, allowing them specific access to certain areas of their company. So it's completely changing the way people are thinking about how to use this technology. Oftentimes people think, NFTs, are, JPEGs or pictures, and they are. And those are fantastic artistic representations of someone's creative mind. But there's so much more out there. I'll give you a couple of examples here. Bamboo Meta, the one I just talked about just now. And so we're excited to continue to explore, and that's why we exist. We exist to incentivize these types of use cases to see whether or not they're going to get broad and wide adoption. And, I look forward to the years to come.
Likewise, Shayne. And you mentioned there about really part of the end goal is to build this foundation to help grow the Hedera network and the ecosystem. And you mentioned in the previous answer about the transactions on the network and actually having those numbers that grow the network. And I was looking into measuring the success of the Hedera ecosystem and actually having more transactions and having more transactions per second as well to see how much are people actually computing on the network. Can you talk about measuring the success of the foundation and growing the transactions and the transactions per second on Hedera?
So they've been growing significantly over the last week. So just to give you an idea, in the last 6 days, we've done over 200 million transactions on the network, averaging a little over 500 transactions per second. If you extrapolate that out 3 weeks, we will have done more transactions in 3 weeks than Ethereum's done in its lifetime. And so we believe that we're going to continue to see that significant increase with this adoption that we're seeing, and we're leaning into that. And we believe not only is it the speed and security and greenness of the chain, but it's also the fact that we've got the scalability. Right now, this is, there are a lot of chains that focus on their theoretical limits or they're theoretically unlimited. This is not theoretical. This is real transactions running on the network. And we're excited by that. And I think many organizations that are looking to build on-chain are also looking at the cost structure that we have that is unique. So if you think about the transaction types that execute on the network, the consensus service, we've got 3, the consensus service, the token service, and the smart contract service. The consensus service, every transaction costs 1/1000th of a penny. The token service costs 1/10 of a penny, and the smart contract service roughly 1/10 of a penny. And so when you look at these services and you're trying to build a business, one of the factors in building a business is understanding your costs. So if you know the type of user adoption, the amount of interactions with your application that they're going to have, you can estimate how much it's going to cost you to run that app on us. And that's very promising to organizations looking to build real businesses, because that's something, it's fixed to the US dollar, and it's something that they can, at some level, get insight into and control.
Wow, that's incredible amount of transactions just this past month. And I think 2023 is going to be a great year. Hopefully for Hedera, that will also just continue to increase. And to hear that businesses are able to forecast their expenses and not have a blockchain network where all of a sudden the transactions cost 5 times more than they did and you don't know, that's something that can ruin a business. So I appreciate the business aspect of that, understanding where your costs are so that you can ensure that you're staying in profit and you're not going to fail as a business. So very cool. And now speaking of 2023.
Well, I did it.
Yep. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to interject. I did it. I mean, we were running a cloud business, and we were hosting things in a lot of the cloud platforms that shall remain unnameless. And as a result of that, I ended up getting a bill that was like, we didn't anticipate, this type of bill, and so we had to refactor and understand, how we were going to pay for that. It would have been great at the time for us to be able to estimate what those costs from a cloud perspective were going to be. So we want to provide a little bit more transparency and ability to understand that here.
100%. And I think that's part of the reason that so many businesses are moving to Hedera to understand what they're getting into, and the benefits of it when they start. Right. Now, looking forward to 2023, as I was mentioning, as the network continues to grow and the foundation is looking for other ways to help its current projects and more projects, what are some of the main initiatives that you and your team at the foundation are setting out to achieve in 2023?
In 2022, we were really focused on moving quickly, casting a wide net on projects, and letting everyone know we're here and we mean business. We're here to build this ecosystem around Hedera. And in many cases, other chains and other foundations were well ahead of having started and having been investing in this in their own ecosystem. And so we knew we needed to get started. So that's where we were focused. That's why we did almost 200 grants this last year. Mm-hmm. We believe going into this year, we can be a little bit more choosy. We can look for things that are projects that are really going to move the needle. And so we're going to do that. It doesn't mean we're not going to make the smaller grants. We're still going to continue to invest and make sure that the dreamers, the builders with incredible ideas that have great potential see funding. But we also want to look for things that are really going to have an impact and move the needle. And as specifically, we need to make sure that these almost 200 grantees go live on the network. So a large portion of our focus is going to be on grant success, making sure we're following up with these projects. Funding was just the first step. What else do you need? Either operationally or from a marketing perspective, education, to make sure that you've got everything you need to be as successful as you can. In some cases, we need to introduce them to an SI partner. We'll do that. In some cases, they may be raising a Series A or a Series B. We've got investment partners that we can introduce them to. And so we're going to continue to do that. And that's really going to be the focus. That's why, stating there's almost 80 different projects going live in Q1. We want to make sure that, as many of those projects go live. We know it's software, so there's things that are going to slip. But that's a large percentage, and we just want to focus on wrapping our arms around all of them to make sure they have everything that they need to feel successful and to go live.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. I'm looking forward to following some of those projects that are launching just in Q1. So for the viewers that want to learn about the different applications that are launching, what's the best way to follow along with those? And also, if there's projects that are interested potentially in moving to Hedera as well, how do they get started?
Yeah, so how do they get started ranges from people reaching out to me or to the HBAR Foundation on social channels like Twitter, DMing us, or emailing us. They can go to hbarfoundation.org for a lot of information in terms of, we've got a lot of blog content, a lot of content on the grants that we've made, the dollar amounts, etc. Or they can go to hedera.com. There's a lot of information around the chain specifically itself, a lot of product related content as well. Or just go to Twitter. I mean, our social channels, we have several folks that are all over Twitter, making sure that we're monitoring the content, as that's a pretty active community, as well as Telegram. So there are multiple ways. They shouldn't have an issue in making sure that they get to the right folks to be considered.
Sounds great, Shayne. And I can leave those links in the description box below as well to make it easy for the viewers.
Great.
I appreciate all the information on the foundation and the Hedera ecosystem. It sounds like the ecosystem is growing in a very healthy way, and I'm excited to see how it all plays out in 2023, and I will be following some of these applications as well. They sound really innovative, so I appreciate you taking the time and helping grow out Web3 to the real world and make a difference and make people's lives better. So all the best with HBAR Foundation moving forward, and let's follow up in the near future.
Sounds perfect, Ashton. Thank you for the time this morning and getting to discuss all these things. I look forward to the future as well.